Wait, all of these are coming back in 2026? From small trail bikes to full-on off-road monsters, this could be the biggest motorcycle comeback ever. Welcome back to Acer Rider, and today we're counting down 20 legendary dual sport and off-road bikes imagined as 2026 models, from number 20 all the way to number 1. And trust me, the top ones, insane. Let's get into it. Number 20, 2026 Honda SL70. This is where everything begins, and I mean everything. The Honda SL70 isn't just a small bike. It's the kind of machine that creates riders from scratch. Back in the day, this was the bike you learned balance on, made mistakes on, and slowly built confidence with. And honestly, I think that's something we're seriously missing today. If Honda brought back the 2026 version, this wouldn't be about power or performance numbers at all. This would be about accessibility. A super lightweight frame, a low seat height, a simple air-cooled engine, probably around 70 cubic centimeters to 100 cubic centimeters, and just enough power to keep things fun without ever feeling intimidating. And here's my personal take. Bikes like this matter more than we realize. Because not everyone wants to start on a big machine. Not everyone wants complexity. Some people just want something they can get on, ride, and enjoy without pressure. This is also the kind of bike that doesn't just stay with beginners. Even experienced riders can have fun on something this simple. You don't need speed to smile. You just need connection. And that's exactly what the SL70 represents. If this came back the right way in 2026, it wouldn't just sell, it would build the next generation of riders. Number 19, 2026, Honda SL125. Now this is where things start getting a little more serious, but in the best way possible. The Honda SL125 was always that perfect step up from the smaller trail bikes. It gave you just enough extra power to feel the difference, without ever becoming intimidating. And I'll be honest, this is exactly the kind of bike I think a lot of new riders actually need today. Because here's the problem right now. Most entry-level bikes either feel too basic, or they jump too quickly into something heavy and complicated. But the SL125 sits right in that sweet spot. If Honda brought this back in 2026, I'd imagine a lightweight, simple dual sport with a modern 125 cubic centimeters fuel-injected engine. Smooth, reliable, and easy to control. Not built for speed, but built for confidence. And this is where my personal input comes in. This is the kind of bike that teaches you how to ride properly. Throttle control, balance, gear shifting. You actually learn everything because the bike doesn't overwhelm you. Plus, it's the kind of machine you wouldn't be afraid to take anywhere. Dirt roads, rough streets, even just casual daily rides. It fits all of it. And honestly, bikes like this don't just help you start riding. They make sure you stick with it. Now this is where the shift really happens. The Honda SL175 isn't just a beginner bike anymore. It's that moment where you start feeling like a real rider. More power, more confidence, more freedom, but still without the pressure of a big demanding machine. And honestly, this is one of my favorite categories of bikes. Because it's not about learning anymore, it's about enjoying. If Honda brought this back in 2026, this could easily become one of the best all-rounder lightweight dual sports on the market. A modern 175 cubic centimeters to maybe 200 cubic centimeters fuel-injected engine. Still lightweight, still simple, but now with enough power to comfortably handle longer rides, mild trails, and even daily commuting. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike where riding stops feeling like a skill you're building and starts feeling like something you genuinely look forward to every day. You're no longer thinking about clutch control or balance all the time. You're just riding, exploring, taking random turns just to see where they go. That's the kind of freedom this bike represents. It's still forgiving, but now it's also capable. And if Honda gets this right in 2026, the SL175 wouldn't just be a step up. It could easily become the bike people choose to stay on for years. Number 17, 2026 Honda SL 350. Now this is where things stop feeling small and start feeling serious. The Honda SL 350 was always that turning point. The bike where you go from lightweight learning machines to something that actually feels powerful, planted, and ready for longer rides. And I'll be honest, this is where I personally start getting really interested, because this is the category where a bike can truly do everything without feeling limited. If Honda brings back the 2026 version, this could be one of the most exciting middleweight dual sport scramblers out there. A modern 300 to 350 cubic centimeters engine, smooth but torquey, with enough power for highways, but still manageable off-road. And that balance, that's everything. Here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike I'd actually want if I could only have one. Because now you're not just riding around your area. You're thinking about longer routes, weekend trips, maybe even light touring. You're not worried about whether the bike can handle it. You already know it can. At the same time, it's still simple enough to enjoy without overthinking. No unnecessary complexity, no overwhelming performance. Just a solid, capable machine that grows with you. And honestly, if Honda nails this in 2026, the SL350 could quietly become one of the most complete motorcycles out there. Number 16, 2026 Honda MR175 Elsinore. Now this one is special in a very different way. The Honda MR175 Elsinore wasn't built to show off, and it definitely wasn't trying to be the fastest thing out there. It was built for real riding, trails, rough terrain, long days where reliability matters more than anything else. And I'll be honest, this is exactly the kind of bike I personally respect the most. Because bikes like this don't impress you in the first 5 minutes. They grow on you. If Honda brought back the 2026 version, I'd expect a lightweight enduro-focused machine with a modern 175 cubic centimeters to 200 cubic centimeters engine, tuned for torque and control rather than speed. Something that feels predictable, easy to manage, and ready for any kind of terrain. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike you take when you don't have a plan. You just ride. You find trails. You explore places you didn't even think about before. It's not about how fast you get there. It's about where you end up. And that's something I think a lot of modern bikes forget. The MR175 Elsinore isn't about performance numbers. It's about experience. And if Honda brings this back the right way in 2026, it could easily become one of the most enjoyable off-road machines out there. Number 15, 2026 Suzuki PE 175. Now this is where things start getting a little more raw, a little more serious. The Suzuki PE 175 wasn't built to look pretty or impress people at a glance. It was built to perform where it actually matters. Dirt, mud, trails. This bike lived for that environment. And I'll be honest, this is the kind of machine I personally admire a lot. Because it doesn't try to be everything. It knows exactly what it is. If Suzuki brought this back in 2026, I'd expect a lightweight, no-nonsense enduro bike with a 175 cubic centimeters to maybe 200 cubic centimeters engine. Torquey, responsive, and tuned for real off-road riding. Not high-speed performance, but usable power that works when you need it. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that teaches you confidence in tough situations. Loose terrain, uneven paths, unpredictable trails. You don't avoid them. You start enjoying them. Because the bike feels like it's working with you, not against you. It's not flashy. It's not trying to stand out. But the more you ride it, the more you realize how capable it actually is. And honestly, those are the bikes that stay with you the longest. If the 2026 version keeps that same rugged, honest character, the PE 175 wouldn't just come back. It would remind people what real off-road riding feels like. Number 14, 2026 Yamaha TW200. Now this one is completely different from everything else on this list. The Yamaha TW200 isn't about speed, it's not about performance numbers, and it definitely doesn't try to be aggressive. But somehow, it's one of the most fun bikes you can ride. And I'll be honest, this is the kind of bike I didn't fully appreciate until I really thought about what riding is supposed to feel like. Because the TW200 is all about simplicity and confidence. Those big chunky tires, the low seat height, the relaxed power delivery, it makes everything feel easier. Sand, mud, rough paths, where other bikes might struggle, this one just keeps going. If Yamaha keeps this alive or refreshes it for 2026, it wouldn't need much. A simple, reliable engine, maybe some modern touches like fuel injection and LED lighting. But keep the personality exactly the same. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike you ride when you don't care about speed. You're not rushing. You're not chasing anything. You're just enjoying the ride. And honestly, that's something a lot of us forget. Not every ride needs to be intense. Sometimes the best rides are the slow ones. In the TW200, it's perfect for that. If anything, bikes like this remind us that fun doesn't come from power. It comes from freedom. Number 13, 2026, Honda XL185S. Now this is where things start to feel real. The Honda XL185S wasn't trying to be exciting on paper, but once you actually rode it, you understood why people loved it so much. Because this is the kind of bike that just fits into your life. And I'll be honest, this is exactly the type of machine I personally connect with the most. Not too small, not too powerful, just right. If Honda brought this back in 2026, this could easily become one of the best everyday dual sports out there. A simple 180 to 200 cubic centimeters fuel-injected engine, lightweight chassis, upright riding position, nothing complicated, nothing overwhelming. Just a bike you can rely on. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike you don't need to plan for. You wake up, feel like riding, and you just go. No stress about power, no stress about handling, no overthinking. It becomes part of your daily routine without you even realizing it. And that's something a lot of modern bikes don't do. They feel like machines you have to prepare for. But the XL185S, it's always ready. Whether it's city riding, rough roads, or a random trail, it just works. And honestly, those are the bikes that stay with you the longest. If Honda brings this back the right way in 2026, this wouldn't just be a comeback. It would be a reminder of what a perfect everyday bike actually feels like. Number 12, 2026 Honda XL175R. Now this is where things start to feel even more refined. The Honda XL175R sits in that perfect middle zone, where a bike is no longer just about learning, but also not yet about pushing extremes. It's that sweet spot where riding becomes effortless. And I'll be honest, I really like this category, because this is where you stop thinking so much and just start enjoying the ride. If Honda brought this back in 2026, I'd imagine a lightweight dual sport with a modern 175 to 200 cubic centimeters engine, fuel injection, and a smooth power delivery that never feels overwhelming. Not too aggressive, not too basic, just balanced. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that quietly becomes your favorite without you even realizing it. You don't buy it thinking it's special. But after a few rides, you start choosing it more than anything else. Because it's easy. It's predictable. It doesn't fight you. It just lets you ride. And that matters more than people think. Whether it's daily commuting, small road trips, or even light off-road exploring, the XL175R would handle it without drama. No stress, no complexity, no overthinking. Just pure riding flow. And honestly, that's something I think a lot of modern bikes are missing. If Honda brings this back properly in 2026, the XL175R wouldn't try to compete with bigger bikes. It would simply remind people why riding small, simple machines can sometimes be the best experience of all. Number 11, 2026, Honda XL200R. Now we're getting into what I like to call the perfect daily rider zone. The Honda XL200R isn't trying to be a beginner bike anymore, and it's not yet a heavyweight either. It sits right in that sweet spot where everything just works. And I'll be honest, this is one of the most practical bikes on this entire list. Because once you move into this category, the bike starts becoming something you don't just ride for fun, you start depending on it. If Honda brought back the 2026 XL200R, I'd expect a simple, reliable 200 cubic centimeters class fuel-injected engine with strong low-end torque built for real-world use. Not racing, not extreme performance, just smooth, usable power that works in traffic, on rough roads, and even on light trails. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that disappears under you in the best way possible. You don't think about it while riding. You just ride. No stress about whether it can handle a road. No hesitation about taking a shortcut through dirt or gravel. It just adapts to whatever you throw at it. And that's rare. Because a lot of modern bikes constantly remind you what they are. Big, powerful, complicated machines. But the XL200R, it just becomes part of your day. Go to work, go explore. Take a long ride home just because you feel like it. And honestly, that's what makes it so good. If Honda nails this in 2026, the XL200R wouldn't just be another dual sport. It would be the kind of bike people quietly keep for years without ever feeling the need to upgrade. Number 10, 2026, Suzuki SP 370. Now we're entering the serious part of the list. The Suzuki SP 370 isn't here to play around. It's that old-school dual sport character that sits between trail machine and road bike, and somehow does both with attitude. And I'll be honest, this is where things start getting real interesting for me. Because bikes like this don't try to be perfect. They try to be capable. If Suzuki brought the SP 370 back in 2026, I'd expect a modern 350 to 400 cubic centimeters, single-cylinder engine, fuel-injected, air oil-cooled or lightly liquid-cooled, tuned for torque rather than top speed. Something that feels strong in the mid-range, where real riding actually happens. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that doesn't care about your plans. You might start your ride thinking you're just going around the city, and suddenly you're on a dirt road somewhere you didn't even plan to go. Because the SP370 has that personality, it pushes you toward exploration without asking permission. It's not overly refined. It's not overly soft. It has a bit of edge to it. And honestly, I think that's what makes it fun. In today's world, a lot of bikes feel too controlled, too filtered. But this kind of machine reminds you that riding is supposed to have a bit of unpredictability. Not danger, but character. And if Suzuki keeps that original spirit alive in 2026, the SP370 wouldn't just be a comeback. It would be a reminder that simple, tough dual sports still have a place in a world full of complicated machines. Number 9, 2026, Yamaha DT125R. Now this is where the energy really shifts. The Yamaha DT125R isn't just a bike. It's a feeling. If you know, you know. Lightweight, sharp, responsive, and full of that classic two-stroke personality that modern bikes just can't replicate the same way. And I'll be honest, this is one of those bikes I personally wish never disappeared in the first place. Because the DT125R wasn't about being powerful, it was about being alive. If Yamaha brought it back in 2026, the biggest question wouldn't even be performance numbers. It would be, can it keep that same character? A lightweight chassis, a peaky but exciting 125 cubic centimeters engine, and that instant throttle response that makes every small acceleration feel like something big is happening. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that makes even a short ride feel exciting. You don't need a destination. You don't need a plan. You just twist the throttle and suddenly you're having fun. That's what made the original DT125R so special. It turned ordinary roads into something entertaining. And honestly, we don't have enough bikes like that today. Everything is either too calm or too serious. But this sits right in the middle of fun and control. It's light enough to throw around, fast enough to keep you engaged, and simple enough that you're always connected to what you're doing. If Yamaha brings this back properly in 2026, the DT125R wouldn't just be nostalgia, it would be a reminder that small bikes can still deliver some of the biggest smiles. Number 8, 2026, Honda X L250. Now we're stepping into one of the most important machines in Honda's dual sport history. The XL250 wasn't just another motorcycle, It was one of those bikes that quietly shaped how people understood do-it-all riding. And I'll be honest, this is where things start to feel properly balanced. Because the XL250 sits right in that sweet spot where a bike is no longer just for beginners, but not yet overwhelming for experienced riders either. It's that ride anywhere, do anything category that so many modern bikes try to copy, but very few actually get right. If Honda brought this back in 2026, I'd imagine a smooth, fuel-injected 250 cubic centimeters, single-cylinder engine, strong low-end torque, easy mid-range pull, and enough top end to comfortably handle highways without feeling stressed. Nothing extreme, just usable power in every situation. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that becomes your long-term partner. Not because it's flashy, not because it's the fastest, but because it never gives you a reason to stop riding it. You can commute on it. You can take it on trails. You can even do longer weekend rides and it still won't complain. It's predictable in the best way possible. And honestly, that's something I really respect. Because not every ride needs excitement. Sometimes you just want something that works every single time you turn the key. If Honda gets the 2026 XL250 right, it wouldn't just be a comeback, it would be a reminder of what a truly complete dual-sport motorcycle feels like. Number 7. The Kawasaki KDX 200 isn't just a dual sport, it's a reputation. Anyone who has ever ridden or even seen one in action knows this bike has a very specific identity. Light, fast, and unbelievably capable in the dirt. And I'll be honest, this is where things start getting serious in a fun way. Because the KDX 200 wasn't built to be polite. It was built to move. If Kawasaki brought this back in 2026, it would almost certainly need to stay true to that original formula. A lightweight chassis, a sharp 200 cubic centimeters class engine, and suspension tuned specifically for rough terrain. Something that feels alive the moment you get off-road. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that rewards aggression, but also punishes mistakes. You don't just sit on it and cruise. You ride it actively. You lean into it. You control it. And when you do, it comes alive. That's what made the original KDX so respected. It wasn't about raw power. It was about usable performance in real conditions. Mud, sand, forest trails, rocky climbs. This bike was made for all of it. And honestly, that's something I think modern riders sometimes miss. We focus so much on smoothness and electronics that we forget how rewarding a simple, mechanical connection can feel. If Kawasaki brings this back properly in 2026, the KDX 200 wouldn't just be a comeback. It would be a reminder that lightweight off-road bikes can still be some of the most exciting machines on the planet. Number 6, 2026 Honda MT250 Elsinore. Now we're stepping into proper legend territory. The Honda MT250 Elsinore isn't just a motorcycle. It's a piece of off-road history. This bike wasn't about comfort, wasn't about refinement, and definitely wasn't about being easy. It was built to go into the wild and come back covered in stories. And I'll be honest, this is where the list starts feeling a bit emotional for real riders. Because bikes like the MT250 didn't just move you from point A to B, they taught you how to ride properly. If Honda brought this back in 2026, I'd imagine a lightweight enduro-focused machine with a modern 250 cubic centimeters fuel-injected engine, tuned for crisp throttle response and strong mid-range torque. Something simple but extremely capable when the terrain gets rough. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that doesn't forgive laziness. You can't just sit back and relax on it. You have to stay alert. You have to work with it. Every throttle input, every gear change, every line you pick, it matters. But that's exactly why people fall in love with it. Because once you get into its rhythm, it feels perfect. The MT250 Elsinore is not about speed, it's about control in chaos. It's about riding through places where most bikes hesitate and just keeping going. And honestly, I think that kind of raw connection is something modern bikes have slowly lost. If Honda brings this back in 2026 and keeps that original spirit alive, the MT250 wouldn't just be a revival. It would be a reminder that riding off-road was never supposed to be easy. it was supposed to be real. Number 5, 2026 Honda CR125M Elsinore. Now we're entering the no excuses zone. The Honda CR125M Elsinore is not a friendly bike, not a forgiving bike, and definitely not a casual weekend ride machine. This is pure motocross DNA packed into a lightweight frame, and it was built for riders who actually want to be tested. And I'll be honest, this is where things stop being comfortable. Because the CR125M doesn't care about your experience level. It only cares about how well you can handle it. If Honda brought this back in 2026, it would have to stay true to its roots. A lightweight chassis, a highly responsive 125 cubic centimeters engine, and razor-sharp throttle delivery. No unnecessary electronics, no soft edges, just direct mechanical riding feedback. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that makes you better without asking permission. You either adapt or you struggle. Because everything happens fast. You think, you react, you ride. There's no room for hesitation. And that's exactly what makes it addictive. The CR125M teaches timing, it teaches control, it teaches respect. And once you understand it, you start riding everything else with more confidence. Honestly, this is not a bike you outgrow. It's a bike that stays in your memory forever because it forces you to grow up as a rider. If Honda brings it back in 2026, the CR125M Elsinore wouldn't just be a nostalgia machine. It would be a brutal, beautiful reminder of what real motocross riding used to feel like. Number 4. This is a full beast. No help, no shortcuts, just pure riding. And honestly, that's what makes it special. Number 4, 2026. Honda CR250M Elsinore. Now we're getting into serious power territory. The Honda CR250M Elsinore isn't just a step up from the 125. It's a completely different level of aggression, speed, and control. This is the kind of bike that separates casual riders from committed riders. And I'll be honest, this is where things start feeling intense. Because the CR250M doesn't give you time to think, it reacts instantly. If Honda brought this back in 2026, it would likely feature a modern 250 cubic centimeters high-performance engine, razor-sharp throttle response, and suspension tuned specifically for motocross tracks. Everything about it would need to feel direct, fast, and unforgiving. And here's my personal take. This is not a bike you learn slowly. You respect it from the first moment. Because if you don't, it will remind you quickly. What makes the CR250M special is that it doesn't hide anything from you. If your timing is off, you feel it. If your control is sharp, it rewards you instantly. There's no filtering, no smoothing out, just pure riding feedback. And honestly, that's why experienced riders love machines like this. It keeps you honest. Every lap, every jump, every corner, it demands focus. But when you get it right, it feels unreal. If Honda brings this back in 2026, the CR250M Elsinore wouldn't just be a motocross bike. It would be a reminder that true performance riding is about skill, not shortcuts. Number 2, Husqvarna WR250. Now this is where things get seriously focused. The Husqvarna WR250 isn't about comfort, it isn't about cruising, and it definitely isn't about being easy to ride. This is a pure enduro weapon, built for riders who want maximum control in the most unpredictable terrain possible. And I'll be honest, this is one of those bikes that immediately feels different the moment you think about it. Because the WR250 isn't trying to be anything other than what it is, a lightweight, aggressive, off-road machine designed for serious riders. If Husqvarna brought this back in 2026, it would likely stay true to that identity. A high-performance 250 cubic centimeters class engine, extremely responsive throttle, lightweight frame, and suspension tuned for technical terrain. Rocks, climbs, tight forest trails, and everything in between. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that rewards precision more than power. It doesn't matter how strong you are on the throttle. What matters is how clean your riding is. Line choice, body position, timing, everything counts. And that's what makes it so respected. Because once you get into rhythm with a bike like this, it feels like an extension of your body. Fast direction changes, instant feedback, and total control over rough terrain. But it will also expose mistakes instantly. And honestly, that's what makes it so addictive for skilled riders. If the WR250 returned in 2026, it wouldn't just be a comeback. It would be a reminder that lightweight technical enduro riding is still one of the purest forms of motorcycling. Number 1, Kawasaki KX500. And here it is, the absolute king of this entire list. The Kawasaki KX500. Now listen carefully. This is not just a motorcycle. This is a reputation, a legend, a machine that has scared more riders than it has impressed. And somehow, that's exactly why it became iconic. And I'll be honest with you, there is nothing normal about this bike. Because the KX500 isn't about learning, it isn't about comfort, and it definitely isn't about forgiveness. This is raw, two-stroke, big-bore motocross violence in its purest form. If Kawasaki brought this back in 2026, it would have to stay true to one thing: absolute unapologetic power. A massive 500 cubic centimeters class two-stroke engine, or modern equivalent interpretation, explosive throttle response, lightweight chassis, and suspension built to handle aggressive racing conditions. And here's my personal take. This is the kind of bike that doesn't ask if you're ready. It just demands it. The power delivery hits instantly. There's no waiting, no gradual buildup like modern bikes. You twist the throttle, and it responds like it's been unleashed. And that's exactly why riders respect it. Because controlling it isn't easy. It requires skill, timing, and full concentration. One mistake and it reminds you immediately. But when you get it right, there is nothing else like it. It feels wild. It feels alive. It feels like you're riding something that should probably be tamed, but never fully is. And honestly, that's what makes it number 1. Not because it's the easiest, not because it's the safest, but because it represents the most extreme, pure, unfiltered form of motocross riding ever created. If the KX500 truly came back in 2026, it wouldn't just be a comeback. It would be a statement. Real riding is still alive. Now here's the real question. If all 20 of these came back in 2026, which one are you choosing? Because for me, it's not about the fastest or the most powerful. It's about the one that makes me want to ride more. Drop your pick in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to Acer Rider for more legendary bike content. And quick disclaimer, all 2026 models mentioned here are concept ideas, not officially confirmed by manufacturers. This video is based on historical bikes, trends, and AI-assisted creative interpretation for entertainment purposes. Because sometimes the best future comes from the past.